Hello, everyone. My name is Tanika Mehra, and welcome to Wharton Tech Talks. Today, I am joined with Kofi, and we are thrilled to welcome an exceptional guest with us today, Claire Lecarpentier. Claire is the Director of Product Strategy and Operations for Platform AI at ServiceNow, and previously served as the Director of Corporate Venture Capital for the platform, Generative AI, and Productivity. Before ServiceNow, Claire worked across consulting and corporate ventures at companies like Bain and JP Morgan. Claire holds an MBA from Wharton and an engineering degree from École Centrale Paris. Hi, Claire. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here today with you guys.
All right. So, Claire, we'd like to start a bit with your background. Could you share a little bit more about your journey and what motivated the career changes you've made over the years?
Absolutely. So I started by education as an engineer, studied in France for a few years. My first role was actually in what's now called FP&A for a cement company. I spent there a few years, worked across multiple countries. My first decision was to join a company that would help me understand business better. So after a few years, I decided to apply to consulting. I joined Bain, where I stayed a little bit over 2 years, Bain Consulting. There I did multiple projects that really helped me see a lot of industries and a lot of different types of project and value add you can have for customers in a very short amount of time. So that was a very positive experience for me. Following that, I decided to apply to MBA, went to Wharton. At Wharton, I focused on two specific topics. I studied finance, so took a number of finance classes, and I studied statistics and machine learning. So, probability classes around Python, R, that helped me, keep basically my more analytical background from undergrad. So that's what I did. After Wharton, I was interested to move more to the investing side. And so that's where I did my summer internship at JP Morgan and had the opportunity to continue full time after MBA. So I did that. I joined a team that was doing private investment with JP Morgan's capital on behalf of the bank. And here the work was a mix of early stage venture capital in enterprise software, but also PE-backed investments. So we worked alongside a couple of large private equity funds, and I was able to learn more about operation there. Spent 4 years there. I loved investing. I think you get to meet really exceptional founders, exceptional people who, drive the company, building it from really nothing to, 10, then 15, then 100 million ARR. So it's been amazing. What I did feel is that in order to go one level deeper for me as a good investor, I wanted to be closer to technology and product. And so when the opportunity came, I transitioned to ServiceNow, which was a 6,000 employee company at the time, and took a role around the product strategy there, and spent after that. I've been at ServiceNow for 5.5 years, and I've done 3 roles at the company. So we can talk a little bit more about that as well.
That's an amazing career you've had behind you. Taking a step back a little bit, why did you decide to pursue an MBA in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, my undergrad was engineering. So I had that, I studied mathematics and physics heavily in Europe. So I had that analytical mindset. I wanted to learn more around finance and business. And I thought that, doing an MBA would be a good complement to the education I had received in Europe a couple of years earlier. So that's the first reason. Second reason is I had spent a couple of projects here and there across the globe, working in different countries, and I really wanted to spend more time in the US. And so US MBA with the possibility to come and stay after was one more reason for me to apply to Wharton.
Awesome. And can you tell us a little bit more about the process? Like, how was it like moving to the US when you did, and what were the kinds of adjustments that you had to make?
It was relatively simple at the time. I had friends who had done the MBA a year or two before me, so I kind of knew what to expect. So from a life, it wasn't really an adjustment. I would say it was quite smooth. The real adjustment is more those first couple of weeks at Wharton, where suddenly you have 100 opportunities that come up and you really have to be focused on, what matters to you and where you want to spend your time. So that transition, took me a couple of weeks to get my head wrapped around it. Other than that, the experience of being in the US, I had lived in the US for about 18 months at some point. So I was quite familiar with the culture and the way of life here.
That's really interesting. I'm really curious as you get more into how your career unfolded in the US. What inspired you to join ServiceNow in particular?
Yeah, so ServiceNow, mainly, I had not heard a lot about the company at the time. It was relatively small, under the radar. I wanted to get exposure to product. The role was product strategy, which I thought would be a good transition for me based on what I knew how to do at the time, which was consulting and investing. Joining a company at that stage, 5,000 to 7,000 employees is super interesting because it's big enough that you already have very senior folks and very senior executives who have done the job before and from who you can learn. But it's also small enough that there are a ton of opportunities for growth. At the time, we were growing 30-40% a year. So it means that your team were going to expand, your scope was going to expand. And so that combination of being able to learn plus increasing responsibility made me, believe that it was the right fit for me at the time. And it had proven right. We are now over 26,000 employees. And so a lot has happened only in a couple of years at ServiceNow.
So 5 years at ServiceNow and the company is like 4x in terms of employee size, at least approximately. That's quite a journey of expansion. But just to understand, so you went from JP Morgan to ServiceNow in a product role. What was that transition like, going from like in investing in like a financial services company to suddenly like a hyper growth startup? And where was this? Was this in New York? Was this in San Francisco?
It was, so my role at JP Morgan was in New York. I moved to San Francisco for ServiceNow. So that was certainly most likely a bigger adjustment even than MBA, because size of the company, certainly, JP Morgan been around for 150 years. So processes were in place, organization were in place. You fit, an existing, process and scope. ServiceNow, even though it was not, super small, it was still very light in terms of processes and how you work. I had the benefit of joining a team that was amazing from a, onboarding and inclusion standpoint. So with a couple of other former consultants, so that made the transition easier. But the first couple of weeks was really learning about, how people work, meeting as many people as I could, and really trying to find ways to add value. I was new to the job. I had not done, product or product strategy before, but there are things I could do and were able to help on. And so I started with those small wins and took it from there.
Again, just an incredible journey, and kind of want to talk a little bit more about what those transitions have looked like, right? So going from banking into tech is one thing, but even within tech, you made a number of transitions, worn a number of different hats at ServiceNow. Quite keen to find out more about what those transitions were like, going from being director of corporate venture to, now focusing a little bit more on product strategy and operations.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent the first 18 months was that product strategy role for one of our bigger product called IT Service Management, ITSM. From there, it was a relatively opportunistic move. They were revamping the corporate development team, which is a team who does both M&A and venture. And so I raised my hand and I said, listen, I've done investing for a number of years. I'd like to do it again in the context of ServiceNow and in the context of tech. And, that discussion went well. And so I was able to join that team. So the good thing is that, investing, I kind of knew, at least I knew the process we were following, and I knew how to approach it, but I also was able to learn about M&A and how to run a process end to end. So I did that for about 3 years. And after 3 years, so I did that for a couple of different teams within, corporate development. So I work with our customer and industry workflow team, which sells our customer service management product and other product. And then after a year or so, I moved to cover what we call platform, which is where ServiceNow builds its horizontal capabilities, AI being one of those. And so I started to learn and spend time with the platform and platform AI leadership. And when the time came earlier this year in 2024, I had the opportunity to take lead product strategy and operations role for all of our AI, Gen AI activities at ServiceNow. So that was one more transition, a hard one because that was a lot more, product oriented. You had to understand product, being able to interact with PMs while being able to run all the operation side of things. But it's a role where I've learned a lot and where I've had the chance to have a lot of supportive leadership around me to help me in that transition.
Cool. And I know that you have an engineering background, and then you did some analytics, machine learning, and statistics education at Wharton as well. But apart from those, that base foundation, what are some other things that you did to upskill yourself to become more abreast with what's going on in product and AI to be better equipped for this next role?
What I've done is I have done a couple of those online trainings around, introduction to Gen AI. There are many now around. So I've done that just to understand the terminology, right? And being able to speak to people in their language. Certainly having learned statistics and spent time on machine learning at Wharton was a massive help, which I did not realize at the time I was taking those classes. But now I feel I'm very thankful I took them, and I use those concepts on a daily basis. 2 is trying to mirror and shadow PMs, try to help them on some of their daily activities. And so by that, you do understand more of what their life look like, and you better understand the products we're building. So those are probably, and 3 is we have a couple of, internal trainings at ServiceNow, which I'm always trying to take and learn from. But learning from, on the ground is really how that worked out.
That's excellent. So glad to hear, and very reassuring to hear that even seasoned business leaders like yourself, going through the same process of rapid learning that all of us are having to do during this new AI wave. I'm really keen to get into more of the technical details about platform AI. So could you tell us a little bit more about some of the work that you're doing on the product strategy team at ServiceNow?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll just say to close the point that it's a never-ending journey, right? Like AI. So ServiceNow has been doing AI for pretty much since inception, since, over 10 years ago. Gen AI is more recent, at least from an industry perspective, but learning never stops, right? The model you had 2 years ago are not the same than what you have today. So new concepts are emerging. So the learning and the way to learn, it's just something you have to do in tech companies, and you're going to have to do as long as you grow your career. So to come back to your point around product strategy, it's a really wide, relatively open role. It goes from supporting our short-term, strategy activities, which is, okay, what is the direction we want to take with our product? I'm talking, 12, 18 months in front of us. What are some of the features and functionalities our customers are asking for? So a specificity of ServiceNow is a lot of our product roadmap is driven by what our customers want from us, right? So it helps us really drive outcomes for them because we are going to meet their needs in terms of product. And so there is a lot of iteration and conversation we are having with our customers to say, okay, we have this product, it's early release or it's in some form of proof of concept mode. We want your feedback on how you use this product, the experience, the functionalities. And so some of my time is spent there. I also run all of the operations, which is everything around budget, around hiring, around organizational design. And that's super interesting and take, a reasonable amount of my time as well.
So it sounds like ServiceNow's culture is more customer focused and customer driven, and you're sitting in to these conversations with customers. And what are you hearing from customers? Like, what are they looking for in AI innovation from ServiceNow today?
Yeah, absolutely. So ServiceNow has had AI embedded in its products since inception. So it's been really continuous improvement. We were one of the first company releasing a large language model actually for enterprise called StarCoder. That was a cooperation between Hugging Face, ServiceNow, and a couple of others about 2 years ago almost now. Their expectations, so I would say things have changed, right? Like in 2023, it was, okay, we have this new thing called Gen AI. How do you embed it into our new product? Which capability do you provide? And this year, discussion with customers are a lot more around. So we've released product. We've released product in production that we are selling. We are seeing tremendous value created for our customers. So things are now running, and AI is becoming real, right, for us. So it's more about making sure that customers realize the value that they are seeing from the product. And to be a little bit more concrete, we have built in-house search functionality for products like HR, service delivery. We have a product called Now Assist, which is basically an assistant that helps you solve issues with, guided answers and ability to summarize incidents. So those are examples of outcomes that we drive for our customer in a very tangible manner. And so that's the type of conversation we are having in 2024.
That's really interesting, right? Seeing that sort of customer-driven innovation. I'm really curious how at ServiceNow you're balancing speed and quality when you're releasing these AI products in response to these customers' needs, especially because customers typically have a deadline of yesterday, right? When they're asking for new features to be released. I'm curious how you're managing that.
Yes, absolutely. So speed and pace of release at ServiceNow has certainly increased. We used to be in a very traditional twice a year product release cycle. It's still the case, but we also have different channels through which we release product. There are store release, there are different release cycle that sometimes are more on a monthly basis for some of our Gen AI product. So speed certainly increased. Speed versus quality, so it's continuous iteration. So we release more features, we get customer feedback, and in parallel, we have all this software development lifecycle that's very robust because we've been developing product for 20 years, where we have, obviously engineers, but also QE and folks being able to test, create a relevant data set to test our Gen AI models. So we have an entire system and governance to develop Gen AI product at scale. And we've had to create that from scratch this year.
That's amazing. I guess because ServiceNow has like this background and this history over the last decade of processes and process-driven innovation, that this is like kind of more straightforward in terms of like they are pushing out a new product and a new process, and you have like a playbook for that. Could you talk a little bit more about what other things are part of your strategy in terms of like what's next when you're looking to innovate? Obviously, like talking to customers is something you mentioned, and you're trying to keep up speed and quality. But what other things are a factor in this strategic implementation for customers?
Yeah, so two things we have focused on, more recently, I would say, is we have a new product called Skill Kit, which gives our customer the ability to create custom skills and custom Gen AI application on the ServiceNow platform. So it helps them productize some of their use cases that we are not necessarily addressing directly. And two is AI agent. So you've seen this wave of, AI assistant, smart agent coming from a lot of enterprise companies. We have released our first AI agent product actually a couple of days ago. So it's all very new and very exciting. And that's really gonna that's a critical piece of innovation for us, and that's really going to continue to increase in the coming months and coming years. So the idea is to create hyper specialized systems, which you would call agent, that can solve problem, and then you bring on top of it an orchestration layer to make sure that collectively those agents or those system can solve more complex problems. So that's the approach we've taken, and it's been very successful so far. We've had a lot of very positive reviews and feedback from our customers.
AI agent seems to be all the buzz right now. Are there any specific unique challenges that you faced when you're trying to productize these for your customers?
I'll say unique challenges, as you see in tech, is you have two options. You'd say, okay, you can create this from scratch. So you create a new tech stack that you then will have to maintain. Or you can say, how do I take what I already have, which is, for example, those custom skills, and then evolve your architecture to enable AI agent to work on your platform. So those are trade-offs, technical trade-offs, for example, we are thinking of, and what's the pros and cons of one versus the other. There is speed on one side, there is maintenance cost and ability to maintain different tech stack on the other. So that's one aspect of AI agent. The second one is that it needs to provide value, right? We see a lot of AI agent. Sometimes it's a lot more like a nice to have, but how many times do you really want to summarize a conversation? It's nice if you can do it every 3 seconds, but really you just need it maybe in the middle of the conversation and at the end of the conversation. So I think with GenAI, you also always need to be grounded in driving an actual outcome and not creating basically nice to have solutions that are not going to drive any value.
This is, I think, a really good segue into talking a little bit more about how AI agents have succeeded so far. What are some of the biggest wins you've seen with AI agents that make you excited about the future of this particular kind of AI-driven optimization?
Yeah, so AI agent, we released the product just a week or so ago, so it's very early. What we see is very promising, and the way we measure that is just are people buying it? It's very simple at the end of the day, right? And the answer is yes, right? It's getting a lot of tractions from our customers who have either already bought it or want to try it. So that's how you measure success for any product, and that's also true for AI agent. And then where we get excited is you can create those building blocks and then solve more and more complex projects and issues. And so the ability to create, right, that foundation of agents and then to orchestrate them, we believe is going to fundamentally change the way we interact with software in the coming years.
That's fair. And you mentioned that customers are buying AI agents products, and that's a clear sign and signal. But I was wondering can you talk about the competitive landscape? Are you seeing more threats of these larger companies that are incumbents in the space, the Magnificent Seven, or are you seeing more competition from startups specifically around AI agents?
Yeah, so specifically around AI agents today, there are only 2 companies who are really selling AI agents, and it's ServiceNow and Microsoft through Copilot. Mm-hmm. Those are the 2 who have really put solutions in production at a certain scale. The enterprise world is a very complex world where you have competitors. Those competitors are also your vendors, they're also your partners. So relationships are very complex. So we don't necessarily see direct competition from any of the larger, let's say, tech companies. What we are aiming to do with AI agent is driving outcomes for folks using ServiceNow and inside the ServiceNow platform. And so for that, customers quickly realize that leveraging an AI agent that purpose built on ServiceNow with ServiceNow solution and on the platform is going to give them the best results, meaning it's going to be the fastest and it's going to be the best in terms of accuracy. Startups, you have a lot of startups doing AI agent. We don't really compete head to head there because they are not selling to necessarily the same customer, and the solution that they bring is typically a lot more point solution. So we don't necessarily see, from a purely competitive aspect, we don't necessarily see them directly in transactions.
It's really great that you've talked about, what some of the other companies are up to and the very complex and constantly evolving nature of those partnerships, those sort of competitive dynamics. I'm really curious what your perspective is on using existing LLMs and deploying solutions for partners versus creating custom models for each enterprise.
Yes, so at ServiceNow, we have hybrid LLM strategy, meaning we both use a third-party large language model for some use cases, and we also have developed our own for other use cases. So it's really a trade-off as to do you have the right skill set to build those models, up to a point where they can be performant, and speed. Right. So you have a lot of, enough, let's say, general models today on the market to say, okay, that gives me a starting point. I can start from there and I can fine tune it and make it and adjust it to my own use cases. So we spend a lot of time, depending on use cases, to test models and compare performance across speed, accuracy, and cost, to understand, okay, is this for this use case? Are we going with an existing model that we fine tune, or do we go and build our own?
That's fair. And when you're evaluating models like Mistral, Adept, Llama, GPT for these different needs, what's your take on deciding which LLMs fits for like a specific application?
Yeah, so we build a benchmark. We have benchmark models. We look at which data set are the most relevant for that use case. And then we basically run the same prompts a lot of time through those different models, and we compare the outcome. So that's the way models get tested and compared. And again, it's not always accuracy is obviously certainly top of mind, but there is also speed at which you get your answer. You don't want to wait, 3, 4, 5 seconds in front of your screen to get your answer. You want it rapidly. And how much does it cost you to run that model is another important parameter, especially for companies like us who are going to then bring those models to a certain scale for our customer.
I think that's a great transition actually to the next section we wanted to talk about around product development, still focused on AI. So we talked about a few of the different competing models out there and kind of how they're adapted to different use cases, and they all have different costs and what have you. On the corporate dev side, what did you look for, or what would you say you look for right now in an AI startup when you're considering an investment? Because all of these naturally require significant investments continue to improve.
Yes, so in AI right now, what drives a lot of investment dollars is talent. It's still too early, at least, I left this role in March, and at the time it was too early to really have a good sense of, is this solution proven? Are they selling? Are they scaling into customers? You do have early proof points, but really what customers center around is assessment of talent. Do we believe that this team has the technical and the business skill set to bring this company to the next level? That's true for any startup, certainly, but that's even more true for AI, because the proof points are going to take maybe another year or two before they materialize. So spending time with the founding team, understanding their background, the type of, proven success that they've had in prior roles, but also their philosophy around managing team and hiring is where we spend the most time. So we've invested in a number of AI companies, Mistral that you mentioned being one of them. And, people is a key driver for investments in AI still today.
People run companies, so I totally resonate with that. And the culture at ServiceNow just seems so people-centric, whether it's customers, it's employees. And I wanted to more understand the strategy around partnerships. So when you were working in corp dev, how much more was it about it having a good return versus the company wanting to partner with the startup that it was investing in?
Yes, so ServiceNow had an approach to investing which meant we looked at both the financial return and the strategic return. So in my mind, financials has to be there. You can never justify a partnership if it doesn't create returns for ServiceNow. It would not be a good use of capital, from a shareholder perspective. So financial return is a must-have, and we certainly were spending time around that. The way you create value can come from multiple angles. It can come from, partnerships between you and the company. It can come by helping the company just grow standalone and help them hire, as typical investors do. So it can come from multiple angles, but I would say we had a variety of investment rationale, investment thesis for investment, and they always revolve around a mix of financial and strategic returns.
Interesting. This is part of that sort of future-focused view and thinking about what comes next. Really keen to talk about the future of AI in business overall, just speaking very broadly. What's something that excites you about Gen AI's potential in business?
I think Gen AI, we all, most succeed, right? It's a massive potential on how we do work. When you look at the way you interact with a computer and the way you get things done today, it's very manual. You have to use 10, 15, 20 software at the same time, or let's say in the course of a day. A lot of what you do as an employee or as a business person could be solved and made easier for you in a number of ways. And I think Gen AI is going to be, is going to really change fundamentally the way we operate. AI agent is one answer, right? Like if you can abstract all of that complexity and just give your intent in plain English, whether it's through voice or typing on a computer, it would make your life much easier. And basically you would increase your productivity by an amount of 2 to 3 times very quickly. So I believe massively in Gen AI and its potential. What I also believe is that it's not a quick win. It's going to require investments, heavy investments for a number of years. And so it's a journey that companies are going to be in for the next 5 to 10 years at least.
Yeah, Gen AI seems to have taken the world with like a complete whirlwind, and like there's so much innovation and excitement around it. But what would you say is your wildest bet about the tech industry in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you think is next and is going to take everyone by surprise?
I'll say that Gen AI and, this concept of AI agents is going to keep us busy for the foreseeable future. So I don't necessarily see another wild bet. I think we're still at the very beginning of this one. What we're going to see is an increase in value realization, and we're going to really start to see customers and employees benefit from those new technology. Right now, it's still early. As I said, right? Like, okay, you have a cool tool that can do a summary. That's super nice, but it's not transforming my life, right? And so creating those use cases and being able to apply Gen AI to concrete business problem is, I think, the transformation we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years.
Awesome. And for leaders who want to embed Gen AI solutions better into their products, do you have any advice for them?
I'll say certainly do it. It's an investment that has to be measured against the outcome you're looking to get. I would say first, narrow it down to what are your core business problem and start from the outcome you're looking to drive. And then naturally AI and Gen AI will play a large role in the solution.
Great. Well, Claire, as we come to the end of the podcast, we just like to close with a few rapid fire questions. So the first one is, in an alternate reality, what would you spend the majority of your time doing?
So I'll say funny enough, where I find peace is in like low tech environment. So I'll say areas where I can be outside and, walks, hikes in the mountains are probably what I would have loved to spend more time in an alternate reality.
Interesting. And also, given that this is an MBA podcast and a lot of our listeners are current students thinking about their next steps after the program, what's the best career advice you ever received?
I'll say stay open-minded. You always, especially as MBA students, as Wharton MBA student, try to be very intentional about what your career is going to look like, what your next job is going to look like. fundamentally, if you don't know, that's also fine. So stay open-minded about the job, but spend time assessing the people you're going to work for. That's what's going to unlock opportunities for you down the line.
Well, Claire, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us on Wharton Tech Talks today. This was really amazing to see your journey, and we're so excited to closely watch what ServiceNow does in the Gen AI realm and follow along.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation, and I appreciate spending time with both of you this morning.
Thank you.